Okay, welcome to the Committee of the Whole. The date is November 6th, 2024. The time is 6:01. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum present in-house. We have Councillor Abbott, Councillor Broughton. Online, we have Councillor Cunliffe, and Councillor Reuter is absent at the moment. Okay.
Marcus is out of town, he's looking.
Okay, Marcus Reuter will not be attending. Okay, item number 2.
He's out of town?
Yeah, he said his regrets. He said he's out of town. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, item number 2, adoption of agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
so moved.
Second?
Second,
Okay, any amendments, changes?
no,
There was a discussion online about a closed portion, was that needed?
no, I don't believe so. We're going to do it another time.
Did you wanna
Not for this. No?
close portion? Okay,
Okay,
we're not making a decision, so, okay.
all right, all in favor of the agenda as printed?
Yes,
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, public participation, anyone in the gallery like to speak? You've got 2 minutes, any hands up, Crystal? Okay,
Okay, so, yeah, Jamie's texted, but where she's in, that's good.
sorry,
No, Jamie has texted, but she
Yeah,
can, so
she's in.
I just got it.
Okay, we'll move to item number 4, unfinished business, and we'll move to project status report, page 2, and we'll pass it over to you, Mr. Chertoff, to lead us through your report.
So this was a request from the last meeting. So on page 2, we have the ASAP project. The majority cost from COBA. There was, I spoke with Carl, and a portion of the costs from Carollo, $128,000, would also be included in this. So it's about basically on budget in total. I thought the Carollo stuff was for the replacement of the highway water tank, but I can clarify that with Carl. So the project's complete. We're not having any more invoices coming in. And so that is our costs to date.
Excellent.
sorry, Christian.
Yeah.
So I saw your response to my question on Corolla.
Yeah.
And it says 132, I think it said, whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
And then you mentioned the highway tank, but they did do both designs for the highway tank as well as the conceptual designs up there.
So
Is that the portion or is that the whole cost?
so it's all under the $900,000 water contingency part. So initially, the project was to replace the highway water tank. Then we went to
Because we
ASAP.
thought it was leaking, yeah.
Well, those are two separate issues, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the cost may be mingled a little bit. I don't have the exact details about how much Carollo's.
Okay, I'd go check. What I'm saying is if you just took the sum for Corolla, you probably find half or less than half of it goes to ASAP.
Yeah.
The other part should still be somewhere else.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
so then we probably maybe a shade under budget with the additions that you said, because you said we got 26K over.
Yeah.
So we probably a shade under.
but for the 26K over, that's for the clap.
That's flat.
Oh, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you're right. Sorry. Oh, no, this one's going to still be well under. Okay.
Sorry if I could. Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Ross.
Hi. Just to, if I could, just to mention something about the CLAT. So the CLAT is sort of coming in basically right on target, but there are a few outlying issues that will take it past the budgeted amount. Those items are going to be coming to council for consideration as to whether or not you wish to fund them. I'm anticipating November 19th council meeting. The project manager is trying to cost those outstanding items. For example, dealing with the apron in front of the fire hall and that landscaping bed to tidy that up and make it function better. And in terms of vehicle movement is outside of the budget or the amount we have available. So that's going to be coming forward to council and a couple of other items as well. anticipating November 19th, as I said, for council consideration. And if council so chooses to fund those, that work will continue and finish off the last details with CLAT.
Okay, any questions for CEO Blackwell?
Okay, have we jumped onto the CLAT building now?
Yeah, we transitioned into class.
Okay,
All right, Joe, back to you.
All right, so for class on page 10, this has a detailed costing of all of the projects work to date that we've received invoices for and processed in our system. That being said, so at kind of the bottom of the page, it says budget remaining $108,000 with the outstanding work that Mr. Blackwell has mentioned. And with Jurgen as the project manager, we're expecting to be about 28,000 over that 108,000 remaining budget. So we about $136,000 for remaining cost. And again, that will be brought to council to discuss remaining items to finish off the plan.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The first one.
Councilor Brown?
In terms of the front grading, that was not anticipated, I don't think, in the original project. But the other things are like the mechanical finishing off, electrical panel, lockers, were those all part of the scope of the original project, or?
That was part of that is was requested from the fire department as well. So the installation of lockers and
Yeah.
all the kind of final costs for after everything's done, implementing the installation of furniture, fixtures, that kind of thing, right? And if I have, so that it was anticipated there would be extra costs after the actual construction work was done.
Right. Now, are these the items that the CIO was mentioning? That we're coming to council about, or is this something else?
Yeah, there are the same. I have my email, I can show you. But these are post-construction costs for locker insulation and other items.
so the four things you listed, Joe, mechanical punch items, obviously we have to do those, I thought, when the thing doesn't operate. 14K electrical panel, 10,000. I'm guessing that has to be part of the original scope, but the two extras would be the the lockers, 10K, and the front grading of 17. Assuming those are the two, which is about what the over budget is in your estimate. So
Yeah,
If I could, that would be correct, Councillor Abbott. I think the yes, I'm going to say you're right. I don't want to get into the details of the bids, but
Okay.
that's correct.
There is yet other asks coming forward, and I'm hearing not, so that's good. Okay, thank you.
on a positive note, it's basically done. So after
Okay, Councilor Abbott?
yeah, so my questions earlier, Joe, the total consultant fees is extraordinarily high. I mean, ridiculously high. It's like 50%, 56% of the project. But then I'm wondering about Introva, which is listed as mechanical and electrical consulting. Is that truly a design fee? And I didn't ask that question earlier in my email because I didn't think about it, but now I'm thinking, is that maybe the Niedermeyer system?
So I can answer that. The short answer is no. You are not, I'm trying to be delicate here, Councillor Abbott. You are not, that was my concern too, that those fees were quite high for the mechanical. There's not a lot of mechanical in there. There is some that I think the Niedermeyer system might be a part of it, but it's a fair, I can't recall now the specific details. But it is a hefty budget for mechanical, and I was hoping, in fact, and we had the discussion as to whether or not we could forego mechanical engineering, whether mechanical engineering was in fact actually necessary for the minor renovation work. But once I was involved in it, the money was already committed. Unfortunately.
So maybe just one thing to look at, I'm looking down the list and I'm trying to now spot where is the Niedermeyer system if it's not there. And we know it was a very expensive system, well, they always are, those systems. I've installed them before. So anyway, maybe that's a note. It might explain some of that, but I don't see it listed anywhere else.
Yeah, it was a budget for $80,000.
Okay.
Was in the 2024.
All right, Mr. Chirkoff,
All right.
next time.
So next item was the Lions Bay Beach Park, on page 11, project status date, listed out all across from 2021. So Habitat is the major one that we're committed to for playground structures, estimate of $182,000. I just got in a request for structural and design, construction design from I can't remember the name of the company, but it's
NBA.
Yeah, oh yeah, and the Nick Gray Associates.
NBA,
Yeah,
okay.
and
Was that number you just said, Joe?
about 58,000. That's inclusive of GST.
I'm sorry, and what's that for?
Nick Bray and Associate, Nick Bray
Design and
Architecture, design and structural, and they will also be outsourcing the project management portion of that.
Okay, could I just look at some of the numbers here? We've got $18,000 went to Core, that was the original project manager, was within, project management. And then they undertook a design with PMG Landscape Architects. So there was $42,000 there, spent on the 2022 design, I guess, which the community was not thrilled with, clearly. So that produced sort of some conceptual designs, and then I see Millennia charged $37,438, and that generated some permit-ready designs, which there was a permit issued on, but I know that they were not, there weren't structural plans, but and we've got almost $80,000 into design here, which unfortunately has not been able to be taken advantage of. So that's a pretty substantial hit in our overall $1 million budget. So, could I ask about the park entrance and accessibility pathway? We've got actual expenditures of $32,869. I have no idea what that is. And I was chairing a committee, pardon me?
I think I do.
Councillor Abbott, what would that be?
It's misaligned, it should be the jetty. That's Balanced Advisors. If you look up above, it's exactly the same number, the Balanced Advisors for the jetty assessment. So I think it's in the wrong place on the budget sheet. It should be down by the jetty, which is.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's because it's connected to the
It was the assessment of the
translate
jetty.
funds. Okay, well, I was
folks,
calling
I'm gonna
that.
ask you to go through the chair, just to keep a
Pardon,
little bit
I
organized, okay?
apologize.
And Mr. Blackwell, can I ask you to go through the chair as well, please?
You
Otherwise,
can,
it's gonna be a free-for-all.
you can indeed, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bowden?
Okay, okay, that's helpful. So it's 32,869, and it's listed up above as 32,700, so I see the difference here. Okay, yeah, that's helpful.
Good, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Chirkoff?
So it was put in that line item, with the anticipation that hopefully we could also get, funding through the Wayfinder grant. That's remains to be
The
seen.
TransLink,
Yeah, translate.
right, okay,
But, yes, that is, balanced advisors.
okay, that's helpful.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know, through the chief, I don't know who can answer this, but, do we understand what's happening with the TransLink budget? Because it's a key part of all of this. Because there's been talk about TransLink funding the jetty, and then maybe it was only partial. But I'm not sure how we assess this and how a project manager assesses keeping under budget until we have that resolved. Is that now past us? Do we know that that's not going to happen?
Okay, I'm gonna ask Mr. Blackwell to answer that question about TransLink, because I know there's an upcoming meeting. So I'll pass it over to you, CAO Blackwell.
Thank you. So there's two components to the funding from TransLink. One is walking infrastructure to transit, the other is cycling infrastructure. Lions Bay was awarded both. We have been in discussions with regard to the cycling component because, of course, Lions Bay is not celebrated as a fantastic cycling location because of the topography. So we're looking at ways that we can utilize the granted funding. Don't quote me on the number. It's Mr. Chirkoff might have the number closer to hand, but it's 100 and I'm gonna guess 190,000 or something. The walking to infrastructure is I think 98,000 approximately. We can utilize the walking to infrastructure money for Beach Park project overall. We have been in discussions with TransLink staff with regard to that funding, and we have resolved that allocation for that purpose. Now, we hope, in fact, to get more money to continue or extend the sort of the walkability component even beyond the park, ideally up to the bus stop at Ocean View, but that remains to be seen.
Okay, Councillor Abbott? Any
Okay.
questions?
So I guess, Ross, the next time we see this, are we gonna see that in the budget line item so we can assess a better assessment of what's left and what we can, how we're gonna spend it?
Our next meeting, what's it, Chair?
Mhm.
Our next meeting, for the committee of the whole, for this, December 5th. I don't know, we will have, we've executed a contract with, the company that, is going to be project managing this and, doing, Nick Bray Associates, architecture. I don't know, I think it'd be prudent for me, or Mr. Blackwell to talk with, Carl, about, what the expectation is on when they're gonna start putting boots on the ground. I don't expect to see invoices coming in, before, mid-November. Their part of the action is $58,000. But that's like overall management, and that's gonna spill into 2025. So, it will be difficult to have 100% certainty on what's gonna happen and how much cost it's gonna be until they actually start working on the project.
Just ask one quick one. So there was talk of going back to the community. Is that happening? Where are we at on that front? Because it sounds like they're moving on implementing whatever plan we've got in place. Is there going to be a consultation or outreach to the community?
Mr. Blackwell has this.
Okay, CAO Blackwell,
Thank you for that. Yes, that is precisely the plan. I've sort of suggested this before, and it's not changed. We are still in the process of resolving the contracts. There's two contracts, one for the design, one for the construction. The design component's just been finalized. The construction component is still being worked on between the project manager and myself, the proponent, and our solicitor. So hopefully we will be able to have that sorted out. There's a meeting tomorrow, in fact, slated for that, and we'll have that sorted out fairly soon. Once that's happened, we can then start moving forward with that consultation piece. It's rather critical in my mind to reach out to the community to solicit feedback, to make sure that this hits sort of, I'll use the word sweet spot. I don't think it's possible to get a sort of a concept for that park overall that the entire community loves, but if we can sort of get the majority of the community behind it, then I think that would be the goal. Once that has happened, we will be bringing that forward to council for review and final direction as to what design council wishes to see prevail. So that is, we've not set aside dates yet. Ideally, it would be good to get all of this before the community and before council, before the Christmas break, so that we can start the new year with a viable project that these guys can kick off and produce. It's obviously moved now into the wet season, which is unfortunate because that can cause delays, but I still think we are looking at about a 3-month completion window for that work.
okay, Councillor Abbott.
So Ross, originally this was going to be a design build. Is it still design build, just awarded in 2 phases, or has that changed?
Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Abbott. No, you're right, but what we did is negotiated with 2 proponents. The reason being the design of one proponent was, I felt, in terms of scoring, was felt to be sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It was a good design concept. During the interview, we had some concerns about their construction arm. And then with the other proponent, their design, I think, was not as good as the design provided by the concept, sort of a design acumen brought to the project was not as good with the construction proponent, and so we parsed it out. So the design is with Nick Bray Architects, and the construction, we are in the process of negotiating or completing the negotiations on a contract with Eurohouse to do the construction. Eurohouse, for a bit more information, is a custom home builder in West Vancouver, which and they want to move, they've stated, into more municipal work as well as their residential construction, which means that they are very well versed in sort of high-end quality construction. And I think that will, in theory at least, bode well for this project for the village.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, and then Councillor Bowden.
So Ross, then back to the original question here, which was around having a firmer budget by the next meeting. If you are about to award the build portion of a design build contract, I assume we have that budget in the contract, so we should be able to see that in the next meeting.
Blackwell.
Thank you. Yes, the successful bid, and I don't have the number at my fingertips, hasn't changed. So so when we asked whether these 2 companies wanted to work together, the condition precedent was that they honor that bid amount, so they have to work to it. So that has not changed. And so, yes, we can provide that at Joe's convenience.
Okay, Councillor Broden?
There's been a tremendous amount of work and time has gone into the conceptual design and so on of the park. And as you know, pointed out earlier, there's been, you know, tens of thousands of dollars spent on previous designs. The community is very familiar, I believe, with what they're looking at. I'm a little bit concerned. I want to make sure that Nick Bray and Associates benefits from the input of the community as soon as possible. And that we don't get into a position where something is provided to the community on the basis of we know better or something, and then the community is reacting to it. So I'm really hoping that Nick Bray and Associates has had the opportunity to benefit from the work that's gone on previously, and hopefully that has impacted on their thinking with the design. So I think we're all looking for a really successful and exciting outcome, and so I think the earliest possible time for consultation, I would aggressively support. So,
Okay, Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you. They do have an indicative design. That was the design that they submitted for the proposal. So that's what they're bringing forward. We could not select a design component without a design. So we required that in order to be able to adjudicate on their design acumen. Their indicative design doesn't mean, however, that it is a final product. The final product will be influenced by consultation both with the Beach Park Committee, the community, and ultimately as decided upon by council. Of course, I'm sure council is alive to the fact that it's going to be very hard to have a community, an entire community support any given concept. So ultimately, the decision is going to rest with council.
Okay, Councillor Abbott?
Maybe one last thought on this. As Michael pointed out, $80,000 of design is gone. Not all of that's wasted, by the way. There were things like septic system and some survey work, which is not wasted. But the largest portion of it is. I'm a little concerned. I heard the CEO said in consultation with the Beach Park Committee. So the Beach Park Committee design is the one we could not afford. I really hope this time people are designing to a budget. Budget never got mentioned in what you said, Ross. It's all about what people can be happy with. It has to come under budget. And my concern is neither the Beach Park Committee design nor the one we saw Nick Bray submit initially was likely to be under budget, or their costs weren't anyway. So that for me is a concern. I really want to see this come under budget or on budget.
Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Abbott, or to all of council, actually. Certainly it is a priority, number one priority, to make sure that whatever design, and it's not just the sort of the washroom building, it's the sort of renovation of the park overall, kayak racks, et cetera, the requirement is that it does come in under budget. So unless there's anything during the process is unforeseen, discovered once we start sort of knocking things down or digging things up, aside from anything unforeseen, we should absolutely be on budget. It'll be tight, given some Mr. Cherkoff, what is it, $80,000 that's been spent thus far, something like that. It would be nice. It would be nice to have access to that money instead of having sort of seen that slip through our fingers. But that said, based on that Nick Bray design that you see now, subject to it being sort of modified based on community feedback and council's feedback, the expectation is that it absolutely will hit the budget.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, or sorry, Councillor Brown has hand up, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Abbott.
Okay, perfect. you mentioned in consultation with the Beach Park Committee, I don't believe that will occur. What I was trying to get at was that there's a tremendous amount of work has been done by the Beach Park Committee, and I want to make sure that all the work and recommendations and the Nick Bray and Associates are aware of that, and that hopefully that will have influenced the design. My concern is that that there was a permit issued for construction. There was a plan provided for construction, which was actually, using a format quite similar to what we ultimately used for the ASAP program or project. And the idea, the hope there was that we could keep within budget and modify the plans and so on, but council just canceled that out of hand. So that never was worked with, unfortunately. Now this offering that went out was set up in a different format. I'm aware of that, but I just think that there has been there were opportunities that were missed earlier on, and I just want to make sure that all the work that's gone into this project and all the thinking and all the professional background and so on that's gone into it is not lost. So.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
Last question on budget. The play structures habitat was described as committed, was the word used. I'm not sure if that means a PO has been written or there's some soft commitment. I will point out that that's over budget by $108,500, which is slightly more than half the total contingency for the project. Is there flexibility there if needed to downscale that?
Yeah, Mr. Chirkov.
So what's not included in here is an offset of $27,000 of fundraising that was generated outside of this
Okay.
grant. So that brings that down a bit.
About 80, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that I have reached out to the city of Kamloops, who works with Habitat on their play structures and recently installed play structures. They use this, they've used them, and their costing is quite accurate. So this is effectively what it's going to cost based on the proposal. If we can cut it back, that'd be a discussion with Habitat. But what has been proposed, I feel comfortable that we're going to get what we get with the cost.
Councillor Abbott.
Just so my question was, so they have a contract. It's not a soft commitment. They have a contract, signed PO. All right, maybe take it away and come back to us another time.
Yeah,
If you can say something.
I have.
Looks like you can say something. That's fine. I just wanted to know if there was some flexibility in that
Yeah,
number.
let's take it away.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, just, can you just give us how this segment of the project's going to differ from the original that the Beach Park Committee had put forward? What's the biggest differences and where are we gonna have the cost savings?
Thank you. So the habitat component, from staff's perspective, that ship has sailed. The Beach Park Committee had reached out to Habitat in order to progress the project, and given that there was a shortage of staff, they sort of launched that or initiated that in order to move the Beach Park project forward. So I would say it's a semi-hard commitment. We don't have a contract, I don't think, with Habitat unless something has come in that I'm unaware of. But Habitat are mobilized to provide the design that's been provided by the Beach Park Committee or facilitated through the Beach Park Committee. So I think that's a done deal. Given inflation, I would be surprised if there's any ability to scale anything back. And it's certainly not anticipated that anything was going to be scaled back. But of course, ultimately, that decision is up to council. Should council decide to scale it back, there may be implications, but there certainly has been a soft commitment to Habitat for quite some time. The design of the building is such that it will be substantially cheaper to build. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but I would say in the order of about 250, 275, $300,000 less to build than the earlier iteration, the earlier design, which was, I will acknowledge, a beautiful design, but it was not cheap. And nor is this indicative design cheap either. But it is substantially cheaper, which allows us to do other works in the park, such as recontouring the slope. That's a bit hummocky. It allows us to replace the kayak racks, which were in question. It allows us to repair the Laurie Beck Pavilion, which came off the table and so forth. So we have tried to make sure that everything is back on the table and within the budget, and so far, so good.
Mr. Cherkoff, you had your hand up?
Oh, I just wanted to also just clarify on the cost estimate for the playground structure from Habitat. I spoke with the Director of Operations for this City of Kamloops, and all of the equipment that's coming to this installation is coming from Europe. Everybody gets it from there, and that's why the cost is kind of high. There's not really any other alternatives. And I had shared the proposal from Habitat with the City of Kamloops Director of Operations, and he said it's pretty much basically online with what they've been doing with them in their city. So the cost is the cost. So unless you want to scale it back, cut it in half and not have a swing set, this is what it's going to cost.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor Bowden?
The bidding process that occurred with Habitat, I believe there were 4 submissions, and it was an outstanding submission ultimately. So, I think it's a competitive, definitely competitive.
Okay, Mr. Cherkoff, next item.
Okay, so we're going to page 12. So I've reattached from old business the revenue, and then the associated sewer, water, and solid waste budgets, just from a request from Councillor Abbott to reconcile or have more detail on how the revenue numbers will tie together. Councillor Abbott, did this answer your question? Everything kind of is from my lens, all ties through. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Councillor Abbott.
I did send the email earlier. I hadn't had time to look at this. We only got it late on Monday, and I've had a busy 2 days of budget month ends. So I haven't looked at it. And as I said in the email earlier, I think when we've got the third quarter actuals in there, it's a better time to review this, because then you've got something to benchmark it against.
Yeah.
So yeah, at that time I'll spend some time and look at it. But I've got nothing to add for this section tonight. I haven't had time to look at it.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And so if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out. I will through the mayor. May I move to page 25, which is the first of the supplementals that we're discussing today. Oh, my apologies. I did miss item 4 unfinished business, part C, a summary of rules and expenditure requirements for fund action funds. I have shared this with.
Sorry, what page is that?
No, this is a verbal report.
Oh, okay.
And so I had reached out to the grantor, and so the local government climate action program had confirmed that if we commit or earmark the funds prior to March 31st, 2025, we're okay. And also, if we're past a couple months, they'll be fine with it as long as we have a plan in action to commit the funds. And this is primarily for the climate actions proposal to the furnace and the heat pumps. I believe Councilor Abbott.
Sure.
So that is the response to the unfinished business from last week.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, have you had a chance to review that with the group, with the staff?
I have not in any detail yet, no. At a high level, yes.
If I may, I'll just read it out verbatim. Hi, Joe. We can make an exception in this case as you have earmarked the funds for a specific purpose. Do you think the funds will be spent by the summer so that you'll be able to report the money on what the money went towards in the annual survey? My thought is that they're not entirely concerned as long as we have a plan and that we finish it up by summer so that they can report to their directors when they do their survey in the fall.
Okay, any questions, comments?
No.
No, okay, next item, Mr. Cherkoff.
Okay, so page 25, so the first of the supplementals is the justification for acquisition of a bylaw enforcement vehicle. This was requested last year, and so it's come up again.
Sorry, what page are you on? I've got that, I think, on page 18.
Are you on the website one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have let you know that.
Oh,
Because some things were taken out
okay.
and I didn't review copies. I had already sent it.
okay. So we're going off an email that you sent?
No, the rest of us are looking at the original agenda that was sent out, and there was some stuff
Which has
redacted,
7
taken
extra
out.
pages.
You can have
in it.
mine.
Okay.
Just add
You know what, I went online because my printed version is also the one from the website. I kept wondering.
Where are we?
We're on
I'm
page
sorry, I should
25, so
have let you
add
know.
7 each time,
Yeah,
or deduct 7 each
when I
time.
printed it out, it got messed up and I thought that was me. Anyway, back to you, Mr. Cherkoff.
May I ask, has Edward had a chance to review the staff report
Yes.
regarding this?
Yes.
So I won't take your time to read it out verbatim. Are there any comments, yay or nay, regarding the request to purchase a vehicle for bylaw?
Any comments, Mr. Blackwell, on the bylaw vehicle?
Thank you. Council may recall the report I prepared last year on this matter. I think it was a much sort of more detailed report last year, which particularly with regard to the matter of costs. At the end of the day, the question is, are we achieving at this point sufficient revenue to make this cost neutral? Is number one. Number two, to what extent does operating a private vehicle or to measure up with amortizing the cost of a secondhand bylaw enforcement vehicle that could also be used as a backup vehicle in public works. So council may be familiar with those points in my report last year. There's certainly a case to be made that it in fact will save money for the municipality if we are able to buy for the right price a secondhand vehicle, as I say, that can be utilized for public works purposes. Plus, there are issues with the bylaw enforcement officer's vehicle. They cannot use the magnetic stickers on their vehicle. They don't stick. The other question is with regard to emergency situations. It's very helpful to be able to have emergency lights that can be deployed from time to time as needed. And so there are a number of benefits as set out in this current report and the one that I prepared last year with regard to justifying the acquisition of a secondhand vehicle for bylaw enforcement.
Okay, any questions? Council Broughton?
Yeah, I guess, well, just some observations. There's 3 vehicles recommended here and the difference in gas consumption, I assume they're all gas vehicles, fluctuates between 10.2 liters per 100 kilometers to 6.3 liters to 11.2 liters. So the actual cost of operation of these would be significantly different. So I'm not sure on what basis we would need a large vehicle. I'm hearing this as a backup, backup could be used as a backup for works. But my other question though is the bylaw, people were using one of the works trucks previously. It's a 2-wheel drive, older vehicle. But is there any reason why we couldn't continue with that? I mean, we're looking at $40,000 sort of expenditures here.
Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you, through you. Answering your last question first.
Yeah.
It became problematic for Public Works to utilize, for bylaw to utilize that vehicle. For the brief period of time bylaw did, I think it was quite effective. It provides, having a vehicle marked as bylaw enforcement conveys a sort of important messaging when it comes to bylaw enforcement versus somebody getting out of a unmarked private vehicle. The key question for council does not need to be and should not be in the weeds, nickel and dimes. Is it $10.95 or is it $10.75? The question at the governance level that council needs to contemplate is, does it make sense relative to the financials and other considerations to acquire a vehicle? If council determines that it is on balance a good way to go, then it simply needs to say, acquire a vehicle at the least cost possible, certainly not more than X. And of course, we'll do that. So that range of vehicles that you see there represent sort of a smaller SUV, like a Ford Escape style SUV vehicle, which, most of the time that's all we need. But it's something that Public Works could never use if one of their vehicles goes down, and they do go down. They've had 2 down recently. So if council said, well, we don't want to have one that can only be used for bylaw enforcement, we want something that can also slip into the fleet for Public Works as and when necessary, then that's a larger vehicle. It's probably some sort of half-ton pickup truck affair. And of course, it's the gas mileage, fuel efficiency is a lot lower. It's that those are either 6 or 8 cylinder vehicles versus 4-cylinder vehicles. But the bigger question for council is less to do with sort of the specific details of cost and more to do with the overarching direction with regard to whether or not it makes sense to acquire one or not. The details can be resolved later.
Council Broughton?
I really support the concept of a high profile bylaw enforcement vehicle. And so that's I want that clearly on the table. I'm just wondering about the best route and how significant a vehicle, and I'm hearing what you're saying in terms of it sliding into the other fleet. So anyway,
Okay.
Thank you for that.
I support the idea of a vehicle, although it would be nice to toss around ideas like maybe a golf cart, an electric vehicle
Yeah.
instead of a
Could I
gas,
ask that question?
but I'll leave that to staff.
Could I ask that question if an electric vehicle has been considered? How many was it 9,000 kilometers? I can't remember the number of build kilometers for that was in your report last year. But the actual paid number of kilometers was like 10,000 kilometers or something. And
1,100 kilometers a month.
how many?
1,100 a month.
1,100 a month, so that's 13,000 a year, roughly. Okay, so in terms of if we
I could. If I could,
Mr. Blackwell?
thank you, through you to Councillor Broughton. It doesn't end just with the kilometer charge. We also reimburse for the add-on insurance for the vehicle to be used for the personal vehicle to be used for work purposes. And I think Mr. Turkoff can confirm the number, but it's over $100 a month, I believe, for that.
120, it says in the report.
120. So it's not just, and I don't remember this number either, 73 cents a kilometer or whatever it is. It's also the $100 a month for that commercial add-on to the insurance.
No,
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got
Councillor
one
Campbell?
question. Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Blackwell. If we had the larger truck, would it support a bucket for additional snow removal capacity if necessary?
Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Cunliffe. That is an excellent question. It can. I guess there's two philosophies. Philosophy one, what is the cheapest possible vehicle we could get that would function for bylaw enforcement? That's one number, that's one vehicle. Question number two is, what is the best utility vehicle that can be used across the organization for bylaw enforcement, as backup for public works, and not just for that? And to your question, one that could be utilized for salting and so forth. Well, though that's the most expensive, because that one is going to be a four-wheel drive, and it's going to at least be a half ton, but more likely a 3/4 or 1 ton. So the further, but to be determined. I'm not entirely sure. I'm speculating with regard to that. But you know, it would be a mistake, I would argue, to look at these things these numbers as a single point in time. I think it's important to look at it over the lifespan of the vehicle relative to its utility across the organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because certainly another vehicle that could apply salt, I think it would not go amiss, particularly if, for instance, one of those vehicles broke down for any given reason.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that would be definitely worth looking into. I kind of like the idea of a golf cart as a backup for the summer months that, you know, weather permitting, you could actually be used. But yeah, if, you know, for some reason one of the trucks went down or the snow removing capacity was compromised, we definitely are going to have a lot of really unhappy residents. I know they're already not happy with the ability for us to keep the roads cleared during a major snow event, which moving forward could be more frequent. So something to take into consideration. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
One
Councillor.
nice comment. Okay, first of all, I'm glad the conversation moved away from the financial discussion of whether this was prudent financially, because I don't think it is. The math didn't add up. We reviewed it last year. We came to a conclusion, which I thought was the right conclusion, not to buy another truck. Now, as to having another utility truck, that's a completely different conversation. We seem to have moved into here. I didn't hear anywhere that people were concerned that we didn't have enough 3/4 tons or 1 ton pickups for snow clearing. Thought we were really efficient in snow clearing last year, so I didn't know that was an issue. That sounds like news to me. And as to finding a way to sign an aluminum vehicle, well, I'm sure someone's worked it out by now, because more and more cars are aluminum, more and more vehicles are aluminum. I'm sure we could come up with some non-damaging way of sticking a sign on a door. I don't know that it's going to make that much difference to the efficiency if we have a high-profile vehicle. I certainly hope the bylaw office is not going to be putting on the flashing light and charging around the village. That's certainly not a good idea. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not convinced of this. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, any other questions, comments? No, Mr. Chirkoff, next item.
I think we understand the ask.
All right, next item, we're going into the supplementals from the fire department. The first one is for a backhoe forklift. I met with Mr. Jermscheid yesterday to discuss the need for a backhoe forklift. As discussed or presented by Barrett last year, the forklift that is currently employed is a safety hazard as the brakes were not quite working and now is deteriorated significantly more so to the extent that it's almost unusable. So the request is to purchase a forklift backhoe for the fire department. Unfortunately, Mr. Jermscheid is not able to attend today as he is on a 24-hour shift in West Vancouver Fire Department. But that is the summary of his request.
Did we discuss splitting a machine between the works yard and the fire department? Any other comments on that, where that's gone?
No further commentary to my knowledge.
Okay, any other questions?
So, yeah, just to that point, that was what we agreed to last year. When the workshop said they would supply it, but they would need to drive it. So I would also like to find out whether that plan was even attempted or why it's not still in the plan.
Yeah, that would I think necessitate a discussion with Mr. Young or Mr. Bird regarding the use of the forklift. All to my knowledge, what I'm speaking to is what we have in the fire yard there, and it is a safety hazard.
Perhaps you could follow up on that, just because again, the use of this would probably be, it's for sure a day a week, but I'm sure the works yard is gonna utilize it quite a bit more.
Seems like a scheduling issue more than a, hopefully that would be helpful.
Maybe you could look into that and come back with it. Okay, any other comments? No? Next item, sure.
So, similar to the prior year, the fire department has requested a budget of $32,000 for Holmatron and Thelen cutters, Jaws of Life. And cutters, spreaders, this is the same request that was done last year, which was not approved. Service life is budgeted to be 10 years, so $3,200 a year, amortized cost. Again, Mr. Jermscheid's rationale is outlined in his presentation here. You can't really add anything more to that.
Okay, any questions? Councilor Abbott?
Yeah, thinking about last year again, I went to try to see if I could find enough time there. Last year, I remember asking the fire chief, are we going to get asked like this every year? And he said yes. And basically, he said every year something else is going to get old, it's going to have to get replaced. I remember discussion, I suggested, shouldn't we just set a budget and say every year you get 30, 35, 40, whatever $1,000 it is, and you decide which of these things needs to be replaced, or if you want to save the money for a bigger thing the following year. But I can't remember what we actually did in the end. I don't think we did that. But
Were we also looking into grants? Was there?
Let's talk about grants. But which of the asks last year did we approve? I recall we approved something.
Oh, there was the turnout gear.
We always do turn
Yeah, always do turnout gear.
And 50,000 towards the
50,000
truck.
for saving each year for reserve for a new truck. That was basically it. There was also discussion last year about additional incentives for volunteer firefighters, which was not approved. We'll be getting to that again. This is the last. Yeah, so largely the fire department requests are what was presented last year and not approved. And, just before, to finish the thought, while we're on that topic of what was approved for the $50,000 reserve contribution each year, discussions internally with staff indicates that we should likely increase that to $100,000 a year, so that we actually get enough money at the end of the day to purchase a fire truck. The offsetting part of that is that we can earn interest on the monies that are invested during the 10-year span of us saving up. So that offsets inflation and the cost. Basically, it's a separate savings account. And Mr. Blackwell, did you have anything to contribute regarding that?
Thank you.
Black.
Thank you. What Mr. Cherkoff is talking about is sort of an internal conversation we had with regard to the allocation of $50,000 for fire truck replacement. Given that that's woefully inadequate, and the municipality will end up having to borrow to facilitate the acquisition of a new fire truck, which is not the end of the world to having to borrow, but nonetheless, having to borrow means you got to pay interest on the money borrowed. Given that it's done through the MFA, it's a lower level of rate of interest, but it's still interest. Bumping it up from 50 to 100,000 is not a silver bullet, but as Mr. Cherkoff has indicated, the offsetting reality is that we make interest on that money, and it will move us closer to the purchase point of a new vehicle, so that at that time we have to borrow less. Just a reminder that although the frontline engine its lifespan can be extended for a few more years, it's not a lot of years. So council doesn't have very many more years before there's no choice but to replace that vehicle. So the question is, do you want to feel the pain now, or do you want to feel the pain later? And as I say, it's better to be making money off interest than it is paying off interest.
Okay, Councilor Proud.
Yeah, I think last year we talked a little bit about grant funding and recognizing the amount of time it takes to apply for grants and so on. But something like the Jaws of Life is a very targeted kind of an ask, and something like that a Rotary Club or somebody like that may adopt or may take on. Lions Bay Fire Department certainly punches well above its weight in terms of what it provides, the safety it provides to the Sea to Sky Highway, and I think, there's probably quite a number of different areas that could be approached to try to assist in some of these very identifiable and specific items that could end up with somebody's name on it or whatever. But the issue is how do you want your fire department spending their time, right? And I think one of the things that I think we talked about a couple of years ago, and in the earlier part of this term, was a grants committee. Some people who were willing to take on the task of assisting staff to seek out some of those extraordinary grants. So I'm hoping that we can look at that down the road in terms of the really identifiable things and who might be wanting to be involved in supporting them. So
Okay,
I think there is a place for grants here.
thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I think, Councilor Cunliffe,
Councilor Cunliffe, do you have your hand up?
I do not, but thank you for the opportunity here. I just wanted to make a comment on the fact that is the fire department actually still using this forklift and driving it into vehicles to make it stop? And is that a good idea?
discussing with Mr. Jermshide yesterday, it has deteriorated to such a state that it's almost inoperable. It does not work.
Yes, yeah, I would caution to continue with this means of stopping the vehicle. But yes, sorry, my apologies.
Just a
Councillor Abbott?
point of clarity, I did go find last year's budget, so, just correct, we didn't give him any of those big priced items, there was more CBA. There was some furniture and equipment, $20,000 worth of furniture and equipment, and then there was turnout gear. So that's basically what there was, more the regular kind of maintenance stuff. He didn't get any of these asked last year.
Okay,
To answer my own question.
Mr. Jerkoff, next.
Okay, yeah, next would be the request from the fire department regarding a crew cab vehicle. So basically a command vehicle for the fire department. Mr. Jermshide has laid out his rationale, similar to what he provided from in the last year. He outlines that you'll have multiple uses, mutual aid agreements, that assisting crews in Britannia, the new fire engine or pumper that did not come with seating capacity to hold the number of firefighters at some emergency incidents. So having a crew cab type of vehicle would support transport to emergency issuance sites, and a crew cab truck is the preferred option because it gives the benefit of a separate cargo area for dirty or contaminated tools and equipment, which is currently an issue when fighting fires. So that is his request, which is the vehicles with an expected life of 10 years. And that is at a cost of approximately $40,000, looking at sites such as Auto Trader and what have you. Additionally, ideally it would be kitted out with line spade coloring and logos and what have you.
Okay, any questions, comments?
I guess we need the fire chief here to ask these questions, I'm assuming, but last year we also discussed the small F-350, I think it is, maybe it's bigger, maybe it's a 450 truck that's out there, whether that wasn't able to be utilized for this purpose. Can't remember what the
I don't think that
answer was.
anywhere.
Maybe went anywhere. Okay.
That's the request. Not really any different than last year.
All right, I think that would be a good suggestion to have the chief here.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
Well, we're looking at multiple requests for vehicles and is there any chance these vehicles overlapping at all? I mean, I'm not sure, but I think it's a really, really good forum for us to, we're hearing what the asks are and maybe there's some kind of blend can
Mr.
happen.
Jerkoff.
To the mayor, so this was also discussed last year with respect to the command vehicle.
Yeah.
The vehicle for the fire department requires to be available at all times,
Mhm.
so it couldn't be shared. Because in case of emergency, it'd have to be available for use.
But the vehicle would be in the village and it would be taken over
That
on a
was
priority basis.
that was the discussion that we had last year, and at the end of the day, Mr. Jermshide basically said he can't share it.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you, if I could. So from a staff perspective, I want to acknowledge the fire chief's concern around this. I don't want to diminish it in any sort of way. I also want to put it into perspective relative to the number of fires that the fire department attends on an annual basis relative to the cost of a vehicle. So although the fire chief's concerns are perfectly understandable, completely supportable, From as your CAO, I would say that it would be more prudent to set aside $50,000 more per year for the replacement of a tanker truck than it would be for a command vehicle. If council had to pick one or the other, by far the fire truck is a more important investment.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? No, okay, Mr. Chertoff.
Sorry, I do actually have one question. I guess we can ask the fire chief, and it leads into, I'm looking at the next piece. And comparables to other organizations, other fire departments. I mean, for example, I mean, I would think there's two fire departments that are comparable to us, as closely comparable to us. One would be Bowen, another one would be SASMAT. Maybe we should review, how they operate, how many vehicles they have. Do they have a command vehicle as well as a small pumper and two regular pumpers? I don't know. Maybe that's a good comparison to make us understand the need. I know we do a lot of highway stuff that they don't do, and there's other things, but anyway.
Yeah, good suggestion.
I'm sorry,
I think we'll
second one
find
was
bones of-
SASMAT?
SASMAT is the name of the file for M1 Belcarra.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, next item, Mr. Chertoff.
So the last request from fire is the on-call standby rate increase. There's a request to increase the on-call standby rate for volunteer firefighters to be more in line with other municipalities. Mr. Dermshide had noted that retention can be difficult, and he's always looking for ways to incentivize people to volunteer here and stay. So he has provided some points of reference from different communities where the rates are that members earn, and overall his estimate is about $50,000 increase in labor cost for volunteer firefighters to increase their on-call standby rate. He has provided a shift standby rate increase worksheet that's in your package. And that is what I can share with you. He was quite emphatic that the rates that we pay in Lions Bay are much less than anywhere else. So that is a question for council.
Yeah, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, so this is my point here was, I mean, comparables that are used are Point Roberts, one little piece of the US that's in Canadian land, and Tofina. Well, I would think somewhere like Bowen and SASMAT, for example, or even other sort of volunteer fire halls that are around the mainland somewhere would probably be better comparables. I do think we need to be competitive. Don't get me wrong. I know it's always a struggle. It always has been. It's been a struggle for 30 years that the fire departments existed, and they always manage, but they need to be competitive. So if we really are behind, but those two comparables would certainly help me with supporting this decision.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Brown?
At a previous meeting, I talked about the possibility of having other things that would may be attractive to volunteer firefighters who are required to stay in the community on weekends and in the evenings and basically in on-call situations. One of the things that came to mind during our discussion of the recycling was if we were going to be hiring someone to do the recycling, potentially that could be one firefighter or a combination of firefighters or something like that. Wasn't prescribing that, I was just saying, that's an idea. Also, in the past, I've suggested the potential of our local firefighters being involved in bylaw enforcement and taking the bylaw training and that type of thing. Again, they are in the community already. This would provide them some funds, some extra income. We were looking in the last budget to subsidize their housing And maybe there's, other ways, creative ways that we can look at, creative opportunities. I mean, if we look at the accounts payable, we've got everything from hall cleaning to bylaw enforcement to supervision of different areas, that type of thing. Is there any way that we can start to look creatively at supporting the firefighters?
Mr. Blackwell, is there any thoughts on that? And is there any other communities that you're aware of where volunteer firemen might have other opportunities within the community?
Thank you. No, I've not seen that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I personally haven't seen that. So in my experience with two sort of fire districts, so Port Hardy and the CVRD had, I think, 9 different fire areas, distinct stations. None of that was provided. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that is the case. Not least of which volunteers, particularly trained volunteers like this, don't stay. They want to move to full-time employment. That's why they're doing the training. In a scenario like, for instance, supporting the recycling facility, creates a problem. If there's a call, that firefighter then has to leave. And if people are in the middle of recycling, that means they just have to walk away and leave the yard open and let people do their thing. That may or may not be a problem, but it's certainly not good practice. I think I certainly understand sort of the notion of trying to find other ways to make it more lucrative to volunteer your time. I totally am sympathetic to that. I think, however, these sorts of arrangements can lead to more problems, inconsistency, and so forth than they would ever solve. So, to put a finer point on it, if somebody is volunteering 4 hours a day to manage, let's say, a recycling facility, they do that once a week, that's no appreciable amount of money that will cause somebody to stay. And again, as I say, they're volunteering only to increase their experience so that when full-time positions come up in any of the fire halls around the Lower Mainland or elsewhere, they're going to jump ship to take on those roles.
Hey, Councilor Broughton.
For sure. Yeah, thank you for that. Just another question in terms of the, sorry, I've lost it here. Sorry, it'll come back to me in a second.
If you have a second, then Michael, to gather your thoughts, if I could jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on
Okay.
CAO, Blackwell's. Volunteering is essentially gaining the experience and the education that in other sort of vocations you would be paying for. So it is exactly that. If someone is volunteering their time, it's to gain experience for an outcome, or it's out of the goodness of their heart. So, I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place here in a sense, but I think the ultimate experience that they're gaining from providing this service to the community is, the outcome that they're looking for, and that is the actual goal.
Sorry, through the chair.
Yeah, Councilor Broughton.
Yeah, sorry. The point I wanted to make was regarding. I certainly would like to see us competitive with similar comparable areas. And I think the edge that we have is the outstanding training that's provided in Lions Bay. So I just wanted to point that out, that it is a real value add. While we should not be paying less than the other communities, we certainly really benefit from the outstanding training and the reputation that Lions Bay has as a training facility. I mean, I know professionally, I used to run across former Lions Bay firefighters on quite often because they were being hired by Burnaby, Vancouver, all the different areas because they were so well trained.
If I could.
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. So I think it's important to point out that yes, Lions Bay firefighting volunteers do benefit from outstanding training and it sets them up to succeed once they take on a full-time role. But I will say in my experience around volunteer firefighting entities, they all provide great training. Port Hardy was outstanding training. Is it any better? No, I don't think it is in my view. So all I'm trying to caution is this. I think it's about being competitive relative to the call out rate. I don't think it's about, I would caution against assuming that Lions Bay's training is that much better than any other volunteer firefighting organization, because I would say it's excellent, but so too has been my experience with all of the volunteer associations I've been in.
Of proximity to the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? I think we heard one comment from Councillor Abbott, which was good, with perhaps a couple more comparables. Comparisons
Mhm.
would be helpful. Anything else?
I don't.
No, okay, Mr. Chertoff, that's it.
So I'll finish the meeting tonight with the supplemental from the administration financial department. Just before I get into that, Mr. Burr is working on the public works supplementals. There are a number that are coming in. And he's been navigating through the budget spreadsheet. So when I have that, I will forward it to members of the committee of the whole for review prior to our next meeting. So with regards to administration and financial, we currently use a program called Maze to operate all of our financial information. We use it for taxation, utility billing. We use it as our general accounting program, vendor maintenance, accounts payable, bylaw as well. What we don't have as an add-on to this module is an accounts receivable module. And I initially drafted this budget supplemental form with a ranking of low priority, and that was basically on how much it costs. Yeah, it's $7,000. Through discussion with our front end staff in administration, with our municipal accountant, it is become apparent that everybody is advocating to have this program module added, as effectively everything that happens with regards to the various items such as dog licenses, building permits, boat licenses, hall rentals, hall deposits, pre-applications, temporary permits, parking passes, etc. It's all spreadsheet tracked. It's very cumbersome to update, and it's time consuming. So with the addition of the AR module, it would increase the efficiency of the front office to concentrate on things other than very basic items. Also, it would automate invoicing, say, your dog licenses, for example. We know who's have information who's paid for a dog license in the previous year. Just generate an invoice, send it out, and that way it's a reminder that hey, your dog. So other comments are also that not only is it easier to streamline front desk and financial processes at the moment, which are all spreadsheets, it's hard to track and very outdated in terms of what our municipalities do. Currently, it's not easy to search payments. It takes far too long to find payments linked to properties, and it would be really helpful to everybody, not just finance, in terms of our efficiency. And so the request is that we subscribe for a AR module from Maze.
I could.
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you very much. Just to add on a little bit, the Maze program for council's information is a pretty standard municipal software program. Many municipalities use this. There are quite a number of components or modules that Maze utilizes, and you can buy them individually. That's what we're talking about here. So, as Mr. Chertoff indicated, the two sort of value prospects here. Number one, it will free up a considerable amount of staff time. So the efficiency piece he spoke about. The other piece that I would like to highlight is that I feel it will increase accuracy and reduce the risk of error. I think we have a low risk now based on our procedures and checks and balances, but it will improve that even more.
Okay, questions, Councillor Broughton and then Councillor Abbott, you hand your hand up.
I can't remember what I was in, but I think I bought a parking pass for my daughter at one point when she was living with us, and I was shocked to have a book come out and a receipt handwritten out. You know, I sort of expected it would go into the computer and there'd be a printout and that would be the end of it. So that seems to be the sort of the where we're at with some of the smaller items anyway. I know on the beach park committee, when we were asking for, you know, how many kayak spots there were and who were they village residents, were they off-site, that type of thing. As I recall, it took some time for staff to come up with accurate information there. One of the things that I'm concerned about, one of the things that came up with the parking committee, the parking task force, I should say, was people were concerned that residents were purchasing multiple parking passes and they were being sold or distributed in ways that weren't really intended. So all those things, and that's just a couple of things that come to mind. So it seems to me if staff is recommending this, that it looks like it would be a good investment based on what I've seen so far. And so anyway.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
I'm not sure how this would help with misusing parking passes.
Well, you'll be able to track who had bought them and to an address, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who's
yeah.
okay.
One address buying
Crystal?
25.
As it stands, we do ask for ID to sell the parking pass, but there's no way of knowing essentially how many parking passes someone is buying, or if they're then, I mean, you still can't really stop someone from then selling it to someone else. But in this case, if we had a way to sell it through the system, picture like a point of sale system, that's what this would create. We would be able to assign that to the resident. So then we could go into their file or profile and, oh, look, that's a bit. I mean,
Do the parking passes have a number, specific sort of an identifiable number?
No. But maybe that's something that
That
we could.
would be,
That would sort of be able to track it if.
yeah.
Okay, I would suggest you speak to Mr. Burr, because on his council, they came up with a permanent parking pass. They went on your car window, you might remember this, and you could not remove them. And that's the way it was done. The following council, which is the first one I was on, decided to do away with that because some councillors thought we should have the flexibility to be able to peel off and give it to our friends and misuse it. That was before the hiking issue started and it became such a big issue. So anyway, you need to just backtrack on what we've done in the past, because some of this has been done before in the past. I'm not adverse to going back to that, by the way. Anyway, so that wasn't what I put my hand up to talk about. Let's talk about this is 7,000 a year. Sorry, 7,000 initial fee and 2,100 a year. And that's based on how many licenses, how many users do we have, and do we need that many? Because the yearly fee is based on the number of users, right?
Yeah, well, whoever is the front office down, who has access to Maze. So that's what, 6 people.
So you have 6 users.
For 2,100.
So each computer is a user then. Okay, so not just the front desk that has one. Right? Is it needed? Do we need all 6? Could we cut it in half?
Yeah, Crystal.
I don't know if I can speak to the number of users. I mean, at this time, only 2 people can really service residents at a time, generally speaking. But essentially going back to my earlier point about point of sale, it's like having a store with no point of sale. So every time someone comes to buy something, which we do sell a lot of things, whether that's tree permit or building permit, we have to manually deal with that payment and then deal with all these other record keeping mechanisms, like all these spreadsheets on the back end. So having something like this would allow us to dovetail and finally kind of bring those two things together.
Okay,
And having worked in many other jobs, where I've dealt with a profile for a guest and you're selling them things, that's a format that I'm really used to, and it just makes sense. So you can look up someone by their name or their address or their phone number and then see all the things that are associated with them, so.
sure. Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Chirkov?
I was, Crystal had just explained exactly what I was gonna say. We have an accounts payable module. So if you want to look for a vendor, Millennia, I can look it up and see every single invoice with description, by date, when paid, for everything. Click of a button, not a problem. We track this data. With the, without an AR module, we have no idea what's going on, really. And the susceptibility for human error or data loss with an Excel worksheet that's manually updated every year is high. We sell services, and we should track the sources of who we're selling to, how much, frequency. It's just better overall data for the municipality to make better decisions and figure out, what you can do better, what's happening in the community, and also as far as an efficiency perspective for our administrative staff. It just, I would say, in my experience, I've never seen a business operate without an accounts receivable module. Okay.
May
All
I
right. Yeah, Councilor
make a
Conlon?
comment? Yeah, everything that Crystal and Joe said makes perfect sense to me. It seems that in 2024, if we're still handwriting receipts to people, we are well behind the times. For example, I have a check sitting in an envelope that needs to go through the mailbox so I can, for my Christmas tree for the Curly Stewart Scholarship Fund, that I can't just call in with a credit card and provide payment for. I'm rarely in the village while the office is open, so it'll go through the mail slot. So many things that people need to come into the office in person for to just try to give us money. We need to make that streamlined and much more convenient. And overall, for the accounting practice, when it comes to, I've heard that people are getting extra parking passes and selling them to people. That's never been substantiated. So if we had a way to track that, then we could see how much of our time we really need to look into certain things, whether this is the case or not. But then every transaction that comes through the office, whether it be cash, credit, or debit, will be properly accounted for. And that, I think, is really important from an efficiency standpoint and a convenient standpoint, because many of our residents are not available between 8:30 and 4 p.m. So I think it's a good idea. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, Councilor Conlon.
Sorry.
Councilor Abbott?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, we need to move with technology, no problem with that. It's interesting how many licenses we got, we don't know the answer, it's not the end of the world. Don't understand, is this gonna give, how would this give people more flexibility as in how they pay from what Jamie's suggesting? It's not gonna make it any difference than
Crystal?
the methods of payment.
I'm not sure, to be honest, how she came to that conclusion. I'm not saying it's not possible. But I know that through discussions in the office, we are trying to make it easier with taking things like credit cards, like that is a discussion
E-transfers?
that
If-
we're trying. I don't think that.
If I could
but-
just jump in there, it's very easy. It's very easy to take a debit card. Somebody does physically need to be at a point of sale machine. A credit card, someone can call in over the phone and provide the credit card number, expiry date, as well as your CVC code. And you can process transactions to the level of what their credit limit is on the card. So it will simplify things. And then you have records in the point of sale machine of when a transaction was done, whether it went through, whether it was declined, for what reason. It might just be that it was over the limit of what somebody has for a daily limit and or what their date needs to be. There's a lot of information that's gathered, and it would be much more useful. And we definitely need to look at moving towards the ability for people to use a credit card over the phone for something, for a few $100s, a few $1,000s, for example. Anyways, I interrupted.
you. No, thank you, Councillor Conlon. Okay,
Just one
Last
last
comment.
point. We seem to have gone down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I apologize for that. But my question was, why can't we do e-transfers? Why are e-transfers not possible? So many people pay each other that way nowadays. That's simplified. Anyway, take it away and not for tonight's discussion. All right, okay, thank you.
it should be possible. Okay, I'm. for
It
the-
is possible. It is possible.
Your cell phone, and you know, if you go to a swap meet, you can deal with your,
That's something staff can look into.
Yes,
It's definitely
staff.
possible. We all do it nowadays, so.
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cherkoff, any final comments before we move on?
No, that's all the supplementals that I've been provided with for today for your consideration. As there is going to be a infrastructure committee meeting and an audit and finance committee meeting tomorrow. And if there, so I expect that there may be some recommendations coming out of those meetings that I can present to the committee of the whole, as well as I believe that Councillor Abbott and with the Climate Action Committee will provide some direction as to how they would like to proceed with the movement of funds for the heat pump and furnace replacement. For inclusion in the budget as far as like the money's there, but you know, spending it. That's and then the requests from Public Works, which are coming forward.
And you're going to make yourself available during the week, you had mentioned before.
Yeah,
A couple time slots, Councillor Abbott, I think perhaps a later time for you might be helpful.
Yeah, we can work it out when we get the budget information.
Okay, that'd be good to get that information, pass it on.
Yeah.
And then give us a chance to reach out to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Councillor Abbott?
Did you say there's a finance committee meeting tomorrow night?
I believe there is.
Yeah, there is, tomorrow night,
When?
4:30.
Oh, 4:30, so it'll be finished before the IC?
Yeah,
Okay, was that posted on the website?
yeah, should be posted, yeah. Okay, there's no new business, so we'll move right to public questions, comments. Anyone in the gallery have a question or comment? Please raise your hand if you do. No, okay, so we have a motion to adjourn the meeting,
Mhm.
okay, second,
Second,
okay, all in favor,
Yes.
yes.
opposed, motion carried, thank you very much.
So, sorry, if I could, for Rain Coast, if you could specify the names of who moved and seconded so they can record that?
Okay, Councillor Abbott moved that, Councillor Broughton seconded it, and we
So
were all in
just
favor.
one question, do we have any public participation in this meeting? No.
No one put their hand.
Wait, no.
No one has put their hand up, no.
Right.
Okay, thank you very
It
much,
was very
Mr.
well-
Cherkoff
yeah,
and Crystal, for your input, and Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Bye now.
Thank you
Have a
very
good night.
much.